if the vision for your business is to make as much money as possible, then people are just a commodity and they smell that, and you're gonna hurt people, and you're actually not really working toward a goal that is gonna satisfy you.
Well, welcome back to Good Business. Guys, I am so honored, excited, humbled to have two dear friends of mine on the show this week, both of which have lived a lot of life with me, have walked a lot with me. And we're gonna talk a little bit about lessons learned through that, and what to do with all of that in the future, and how to apply that to real world. Wisdom without actually using it is pointless. So ideally, you would have not just the knowledge, but the ability to employ that. And so today, I want to welcome Patrick Rowe and my co-host James Hall back to the show. And Patrick, thank you so much for making the hike over from Houston to hang out with us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah. This is a blast.
Yeah. So Patrick, I'd love it if you could just introduce yourself. If you want to talk to the audience, they're hanging out right over there.
Depends on how much they like me or not.
They're muted, so they can't talk back to you today.
Great.
So
one way, that's how I like it.
So Patrick, you're a pastor, you're a church planter, you're a missionary, you're a dad, you're a husband, and I'm sure there's a lot more ping pong player. Maybe.
I am that, actually. I wouldn't have thought to say that, but yeah. Once. Yeah.
Would you mind just introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your story so that everyone listening in has some context?
Yeah, sure. So, I was born in Corpus, kind of grew up in Houston. Parents are believers, got saved in the Jesus Revolution. Actually, mom was a hippie, dad was not a hippie, but not a great guy. Anyways, I was raised in the church by them, and I really didn't really have a faith of my own until I was 17 or so, and that just radically changed my life. I had a big moment of like turning to the Lord and turning away from my sin and kind of the person that I was, which was not a good person, and turned to the Lord. And then that just set me on a different trajectory. My heart just changed, and just everything that I wanted was what God loved and wanted, is what it felt like changed in me. And I had no plan for my life, but I did have kind of a little girlfriend who went to A&M. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll go to A&M, Texas A&M. And as soon as I got accepted, she broke up with me. But I decided to go anyway. Yeah. So I was at A&M, and the Lord gave me a great group of friends there. During that time, I met now who's my wife, not at A&M, but came back home and met her. And we just started our life together. We have 4 kids now. We've been married 21 years, 4 kids, and we planted 2 churches now. We lived in Thailand for a little while. The whole journey just feels like a wild ride, and here we are. So over the years, I feel like who I am as a person is I'm just a Jesus follower. And that's looked different and felt different over the years, different seasons and things like that. Working in business or working as a pastor or working overseas as a missionary or whatever it is, that's been my identity. And so that's how I know you guys in a few different capacities over the years. But so I'm happy to be here. Really grateful.
Love it.
I love you guys.
Love it. Right back at you, man.
Glad
so James and I, we attended Genesis, and that's how we got connected. and I actually met you one night. One of my friends invited me to a community group, which is a very strange way to enter into a church. Normally you go to Sunday first and then you go to a community group. But anyway, I showed up at community group.
Let me tell you, all the churches want you to find the church like you did.
Well, there you go.
That's the behind the curtain secret.
Oh, it worked.
Right, it worked.
Hey, I'm right there. It worked on me too. It's the same story.
There it is.
So.
There it is. Yeah. But when it comes to that initial engagement, you like saw me and you were like, no, I'm not letting you get away. It was like a very like, I see right through you, and I know that you got something going on.
Yeah.
And we struck up a really deep conversation that day, and then I think we started meeting pretty much every Tuesday morning for years.
Yeah.
So one thing that struck me about that was just your intentionality. And I'm not trying to like boost you up or anything along those lines.
You can't.
And just for everyone tuning in, podcasting is an interesting, Patrick and I have an interesting relationship when it comes to podcasting, because when I first started attending Genesis a little over a decade ago, I remember saying, hey, we should start recording your sermons and you should let me post them on Facebook. And I remember you at first being like, no, I don't want it to be about me. I don't want it to be about me. Yeah. And I was like, bro, it's not about you. It's about the gospel message getting out. And you're like, oh, I get it now.
Convincing.
Yeah.
So
spin on that.
So Patrick, you've always had this mindset of and heart of humility about you. You don't want it to be about you. But there's a lot to emulate when people look at you. And so one thing, like I said, that really stood out to me and that I've tried to model is intentionality, is seeing someone for who they are, where they are, meeting them there, and being patient with them. So I'd love it if you could just share a little bit about how you have aimed to pastor people, like what your heart, what your intention has been, and what you would encourage others who are in a leadership role. Maybe they're not a pastor, maybe they are, but how do you do what you do? And you can't just say the Holy Spirit, Jesus, God, the Bible.
Dang.
Sorry, can't do it.
Yeah, there's certain rules to this. Quite well, which is great.
And thanks for what you said. I mean, and it means a lot coming from you, because I want to be like you in a lot of ways, and I really mean that. I've told other people that. No, first of all, I would say naturally, I am not like that. Who I am on my own, and I'm not copping out. It's my real answer. Who I am on my own, apart from the work of God in me, is a very unintentional person. I don't notice a lot. I'm pretty myopic. It's like whatever's right in front of me, that's what I see, and that's what I give attention to.
So you're a guy.
I'm a dude. I mean, things that I really care about are like right here, and I have no idea until they're like, So that's what I'm like naturally, is things can go over my head and get slipped through my fingers and all those things. But it is a desire of mine to be intentional, especially towards people and in relationships, because that's what Jesus is like. And one way that I see that a lot is that Jesus was constantly interrupted during his life by people who could offer him nothing. He had everything, he is everything, he has all the power and authority, and he's completely secure in himself, and he came to serve us. He made that very clear. He just didn't, there wasn't anything anybody could offer him. But he was willing to be interrupted constantly by people's needs. Not even by people's worship or adoration, which he deserved all of it, but he was constantly interrupted by people's needs and crises, He was willing and even eager. And sometimes he would even stop and go, hey, to somebody who maybe wasn't even looking for him, and he would just stop and notice them and take the time. And so in a way, I feel like God has taught me, convicted me to be countercultural in that way where we're just moving so fast. And if somebody can't offer you something, you just move on. You know,
Yeah.
we're consumeristic in that way in our culture and very individualistic. And that's just not Jesus. He's very others oriented. He slows down, he takes time. Sometimes on taking time on the thing that seems like it wouldn't serve the goal, but he's still willing to stop because it's a person. And I just want to be like that. That's just really admirable. So I want to be like that. And so what happens with me when it feels like you're asking about kind of the mechanics of like, when here's a person presented to you and they can't offer you anything or do anything for you, but you're willing, you notice them and you stop. For me, that is God going, that's a person I made. And I love them. Are you going to love them? And in the Bible, when you love people, it's according to their need. You know, you don't love them in the way that makes you feel loved. You love them in the way that they need to be loved. And most of the time, I think that's time and listening and being patient and affection. Having affection and not being afraid to show affection for people, like real friendship and forming real bonds, which is risky.
Yeah.
You know, allowing yourself to really get bonded to somebody that you know is, I'm broken, you're broken. Here we both are, but we need each other.
Yeah.
And so are we going to risk that investment in one another and all the time and energy it takes? To me, that's what I'm trying to be intentional about.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned something at the very end there that I want to kind of speak to and ask you a question about, which is risk. So when you are a leader of people, in this scenario with y'all, you know, when Clay was new to a church, you had responsibilities. You're leading a whole group of people at this point, right? And when someone new shows up, at that moment, similar to Jesus' story, it's like he had disciples. And when people showed up, like the lady who touched his garment, it's like he was like, hey, I'm noticing you now, right? Like it's an intentional moment, right? And you're seeing that person who adds no value. And not only that, but you already have responsibility to other people. And I think a lot of times people, whether they are church leaders or business leaders, they make a crucial mistake, which is to think that after a certain point of however many people you have around you, that you can't take that moment and stop and focus on somebody and say, hey, all the rest of you, just hang out for a second. This person's here, and there's a need that's happening right in front of me.
Yeah.
Now, business-mindedly speaking, or organization and efficiently speaking, you're thinking, this is not the way that I should be using my time.
Yeah.
Because my time should be leading all these people to some destination. But the reality is maybe God brought that person, you know, that sheep to your fold, if you will, for you to care on them because you're the person that's going to be the best to care for them. Right. And so I guess one of my questions related to that is about the subject of risk. How would you talk to and ask leaders of churches and organizations to like change their mind about the risk factor? Because, you know, it seems like it's a risk to take that moment. Because, I mean, I've trained people on this. It's like, hey, if it's urgent, then great. If it's important, great. If it's urgent and important, I'm doing it right now. If it's neither urgent nor important, I'm doing it later. And sometimes we put people into that.
Neither urgent nor important.
How does that feel?
Why'd you have to spell it out like that?
That's how we look at
Yeah.
it. So what would you like to share with people to say? How do you work anti-culture? How do you walk against the culture?
Well,
in
and
that
also,
way?
why should people be in the urgent and important category?
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing. So that's the countercultural thing, is the presupposition that people are important. They just are. And it's not because they, in this moment, can accomplish something for you or offer you something that you thought you needed or serve some other goal. They're just a person and therefore valuable. And the interruption of my life then becomes worth it because of their value. And honestly, this is another principle that's just so upside down from our culture, which is the biblical thing of God doing very small things that turn out to serve very big things. But in the moment, it just felt like small.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's it's so counterintuitive to think that God would come into the world, Jesus, and that he would be born in a suburb of a place where nobody wanted to live, to a family that nobody knew about or cared about, who were poor and had no influence. And then when he grows up and begins to like live out his calling that he came into the world to accomplish, he chooses 12 fishermen, one of them whom he knows will betray him. It's like, and just 12.
Yeah, it's a bad plan.
It seemed like if you were going to just draw it up, like the biggest, best thing that ever happened in human history, you would make it so much bigger and grander that in the moment it would feel so important. But it was just like this regional disturbance, which mostly happened in the countryside. It didn't even happen in Jerusalem. And Jerusalem was middle of nowhere to Rome, you know? So he didn't come to Rome and become emperor. He went to Israel and became a countryside preacher with 12 podunk friends. You know, that's just so upside down. It's so counterintuitive, but that's Jesus's way. You know, so then in that moment where you have a person in front of you who does, it's not like, wow, I could spend 10 minutes with this person and that would launch us forward on these goals that we've set. It's like, no, you're not going to be able to put that together. But the value of the person and the value, the eternal value of just laying down yourself and investing yourself in this other human being, you have no idea what God can do with that.
Yeah.
And he's always doing the unexpected. He's always surprising us. It's like, how often do we get these grand visions and ideas about what should happen? And then something so much better happens in a way that we never could have planned. And it was a million tiny moments that we thought were insignificant. And they just piled up to be something beautiful. So just embracing that and seeing the person and risking my sense of importance and self-importance, you know, risking all that and laying all that down, it's just worth it. So you just have to presuppose the value of the people. That's what I think.
So what does it mean with that in mind to meet people where they are?
Yeah. I'm laughing because, well, I mean, I don't know how much you want to get into like our relationship, you know, the history of our friendship or whatever.
Hey, just
okay.
No secrets here on Good Business.
Right.
There's only a few people behind the cameras here, so
Right,
it's okay.
yeah.
It's just a few of us.
No one's ever going to see
No
this
one's ever
anyway.
going to see this.
Yeah, like, okay, in the example of our friendship, can you tell me your question again?
Yeah. So what does it look like to meet people where they are?
Okay. So I think anybody can get the big picture about where another person is in 30 seconds. Like you can basically get the idea of like, you're doing okay or you're not okay.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's
kind of
triage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like this little snapshot, you know, it's like an Instagram story that kind of tells me like, okay, I kind of understand basically something about you. But if you are going to be helpful, not just, okay, I get it, but you're going to be helpful, then the difference to me is, for instance, in our relationship, I felt like I understood really quickly when I met you. It took me about 5 minutes to understand you weren't okay. And I'm sure the Lord was just helping me to understand that, you know. But you were wearing it, you know, you weren't okay. And so I ask you, you know, so tell me, you know, how you doing? Like, what's going on? And you're like, no, you know, no big deal. I'm just back home from some stuff. You know, and it was like,
We all laugh at the same moment. It's like, some stuff.
yeah, you know,
little
for
bit.
viewers, you know, if you know anything about Clay's story, it was some stuff.
It was some stuff.
Yeah, like that was an understatement. But then sensing that there was more underneath there, it's like more questions. Well, wait, tell me about that. What's going on, you know? And so so now I'm entering into just collecting information where I can understand where you're at. That's what you're talking about, meeting people where they're at. I'm not really meeting you where you're at yet. I'm just learning where you're at. Okay, now at the point where you've told me your story, where you've been through the ringer, your life has blown up. You know, you don't know who you are or what you are anymore or why you are anymore, you know, everything has melted down. And now I know that. Now here's the point where I can either just go, I'll pray for you, brother. And I have done nothing to help you. I have not met you where you are. I just discovered where you are. To meet you where you are is to go against the natural thing of withdrawing from pain.
Yeah.
Where you're like, ooh, that's a mess, you know, I don't have time to deal with this.
Yeah.
You know, this guy needs a professional. You know what I mean?
I did.
Which you did. Instead of just bowing out at that point with some platitudes and whatever, the meeting you where you're at is I enter into that mess.
Yeah.
I'm now going to become a part of the story. And I'm hoping I'm a redemptive part of the story. Like I can bring some kind of comfort or encouragement or whatever, you know? But that's where you're meeting someone where they're at. So whenever you meet the person and you see the value in the person, you just agree the presupposition of this person is valuable. They're made by God, they matter to God, God has just brought them into my path. I'm gonna agree with God that this person matters and they're valuable. So then I'm gonna ask questions and try to understand where they're at and what's going on in their life and everything. And when I find out that they're really hurting and struggling and discouraged or hopeless or whatever it is, I'm gonna go that right there.
Yeah.
That's where I wanna get into your life. Not with the platitudes and the convenient parts of your life that I can dip in and out of, but I'm going to enter into that part where you have a burden and I can get up under that burden with you.
Yeah.
Now you've met a person where they're at, because that's where they're actually at. They're not just the person with a story to tell. They're a person with a crushing burden.
Yeah.
And coming up under that with them, you have met them. That's just, you first have to decide you're willing at all
Right.
to pay that cost, because it's costly.
Absolutely.
There's a big cost to it.
Can I throw two questions out there?
Yeah.
So, first off, most of the people that I meet in life, they are struggling with something.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I'd say everybody.
All of them.
But maybe someone said they were fine and they put on a good show and I believed them. I don't know, but I know that everyone has problems. Everyone has issues that they're facing, and so if you're wanting to meet them where they are, how do you make sure? So first, question number one: how do you make sure that you are capable and ready and able and healthy enough to actually be there for them, so that it's not making it worse? And second off, what is the outcome? Like, what's the benefit?
Right.
So they're kind of rhetorical, but I would love to hear your thoughts on those.
I don't hear it as rhetorical. I mean, this is real. If we're really going to live alongside each other as human beings, this is not rhetorical. I mean, this is, as you said, every single person I know, you know, like we know each other. We're all hurting.
Yeah.
We all have stuff, you know? And the willingness to come up underneath those burdens with each other is enormous. I mean, it's kind of our whole calling toward one another, you know? So that's what love looks like. But the how do you know you're healthy enough? You know that if you live in community with people who really know you and understand you and your life. If you're going to be dishonest about your pain and your discouragement or your burden, then you won't know and nobody else will know if you're healthy enough to bear another person's burden with them, you know? And that's why it's so critical that we're just actually honest and sincere with each other, because it's not just that I need you to know the truth about me. It's like, I need everyone to know me so that I know me. So that when I'm talking and somebody goes like, oh, You know?
You gotta have those friends. You gotta have those friends. They're like, what?
Yeah, what did you
James,
say?
I've never had makeup on my face before.
Yeah.
No, yeah. James has never been
Yeah.
Elsa for Halloween.
Yeah, no, never.
And then lied about it. No, you weren't lying. You just
Forgot.
Appropriately forgot.
helped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry, inside joke.
inside joke.
It may end up on the internet.
Too
one day.
far inside.
Yeah.
Please tell me that picture is going to be somewhere in the comment section or something.
Just flash it up for one frame right now.
That's right.
I think
Right
I see
now. All right,
4
there we
people
go.
who are willing to make that happen. Okay, so we're talking about readiness,
Yeah.
the ability to meet a person where they're at, the way I'm describing.
Well, and if I can just kind of take it more 30,000 foot view,
Okay.
in a leadership role,
Yeah.
you're bearing, to James's point earlier, you're bearing a lot of weight.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that you're wrestling with, that you're carrying on your own. And therefore you also have your everyday problems too. So how do you make sure as a leader, you're capable of meeting the people who you're responsible for leading?
Mm-hmm.
How do you make sure you're ready to serve them?
Yeah. That's about how you arrange your life.
Yeah.
That's like, you have to build your life with margin. So if your intention is, your plan is to care for other people and love them and bear their burdens with them, so that I'm planning on this being a part of my life, then when you plan your life, plan for that. Which means if I max myself out from 6 a.m. until 8 o'clock at night with tasks, with accomplishments, and I don't leave any room for listening, for spending time with a person, for the unexpected, like what's going to happen at the office today? Is someone going to walk through my door and need me? I need to be needable, I've got to be available.
Hey, why are you looking at my journal? Like, that's not okay.
Right?
It's not okay to be looking at the private side of life.
Well,
I mean, my schedule is not public.
Yeah,
Come on.
I know you.
Yes, you do. It is a problem.
Yeah.
But
That's why I was looking at you when I said it, not
I
at
know.
James. No,
It's a struggle.
that really does come down to, this is not theoretical, it's not hypothetical,
Yeah.
it's literally, how do you plan your life? How do you arrange your life? What's your expectation for every day? If you don't leave any room in your tank, in your schedule and in your tank for people, for other people, and for things not being perfect in their lives, and that you could be God's plan for getting involved and speaking to that and helping bear that, maybe not solving it, but being there to hear it and understand it and come up under it with them. If you don't give yourself any margin for that, then you don't have it. And when it happens, you're panicking, or you just stiff arm the person. You outsource that to some firm or something. Like, if anybody has a problem, we have a number you can call. That's, somebody came in through your door because they thought you can help. So you need to be available, and you won't be unless you plan for it, But that comes down to, who am I and why am I even here? That comes down, that is 30,000 feet. That's, what's the vision for my life? That goes beyond just like, how do I plan my day and how do I be successful? That's not just about streamlining business and like solving problems as you go. That's way bigger than that. That's, who am I? Am I a person who's here for others? If I'm not, then I don't build my life with any margin, with any capacity for investing in other people or the unexpected burden that I need to help bear or understand. I don't give any time for that, and I don't plan for it unless I think that, wait, that's why I'm here.
Well, I want to give a warning here too to all types of leaders, organizations, nonprofits, and for-profits. If you're the kind of person that doesn't care about people that much and you're trying to get to some goal, I'll tell you right now, you're going to have staff turnover. It's going to happen. Because people want to be cared for. Matter of fact, most people who come and work for you, they trust you. They trust you a lot, right? Because If they were an entrepreneur, they'd go make their own business. But they're not. They don't think. Most people don't think entrepreneurially in the sense of like being hired into staff or onto some type of role. They like the fact that they're coming into something that feels secure because they probably have some form of insecurity happening in their life. And so the people who are around you that you have brought in to hire to ask them to get things finished to reach a greater goal and mission, which is something we talked about a lot on this podcast, having a mission for whatever you're doing, whether it be in business or in the nonprofit space. If you do not care about the people that you're doing that work with, they're not going to stay.
Yeah.
They're going to leave because they're going to come in that door one day, or they're going to call you and you're thinking, do I pick up this phone? The answer is yeah, you should pick up that phone. And then I will also flip that script to say, if you're in an industry where you care for your clients are trusting you and they want you to care about them. And if you don't pick up the phone when they call you, they feel uncared for. They feel like they have a need and a problem at that moment. That's why they're calling you, because they're hoping you're going to be there. Yeah, they do pay you, but on some level, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just the whatever the amount is that you're being paid to do something. It's also does this person care about me? Because people could pay you a lot of money, but they will know if you actually care or if you don't, And when it comes to leaning into that, I think a lot of people try to stay away from that in business. It's like, no, this is professional only, kind of thing. And it's like, yes, we are professional, but those are people, and they're the people that work with you, and they're the people that you are guiding, on those fronts.
Right.
This is how relationships work.
Yeah, and this, I hope I'm not jumping too far ahead in the conversation, but I mean, as I was preparing for this and asking the Lord about like helpful things, like, we ultimately need Him to teach us these things. We need to learn this wisdom from Him. He's the one who has it. And so, as I was asking Him for that, what I really felt was, it's this conversation right here. It's, we've talked about vision. I've even met with you guys and your team and talked about vision and like, how does that function and how do you like operate in a way that you can actually accomplish good vision, And here's the thing about business, and I'm talking about business because this is the way I felt like the Lord was talking about it to me. If the vision for your business is to make as much money as possible, then people are just a commodity and they smell that, and you're going to hurt people, and you're actually not really working toward a goal that is going to satisfy you. Because at the end of the day, especially for a Christian person, if you're a Christian, here's the dilemma. The vision for my business is to make as much money as possible. But Jesus is telling me, live sacrificially, be generous, take time for people, put others above yourself. Those are not things that the world says are going to help you make as much money as possible. Sometimes that costs you money, If time is money and people take time, then people cost you money, Yeah. So you have this dilemma where you've built your business or your organization on a vision that is not actually grounded in a biblical vision of life. So then you're competing. You have competing visions, and this is what we've always done in corporate America, is we just separate them.
Yeah.
There's business, and then there's my faith, and there's the kind of person I want to be.
Yep.
So you build your vision, you have this foundation that says make as much money as possible. And then you try to put Jesus' teaching on top of it, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit on it. So instead it has to be that the vision of your business is Jesus' teaching, and then you build on top of that, and that can easily include generosity. And being sacrificial and taking time for people. And that person walks through your door and they need you, and you give them the time that they need from you because they were trusting you and the Lord put you in this position in their life. You give them that, and you were always planning to give them that because this was the vision. If the vision, instead of make as much money as possible, is instead to do good in Jesus' name, to build something that glorifies God, do something that helps people, provides for people, for my family, for your family, we can build something together that is good. That's a great vision. And that leaves a lot of room for generosity and living sacrificially and loving one another and burden bearing and what feels like wasted time because it didn't accomplish the goal for the week, you know? But this is one of our goals, is to care for each other and to do good, you know? So it's just rethinking completely, why are we even here, you know? Which this is what I always do. I always walk into conversations and completely blow them up with the 35,000 foot view, you know. But I can't help it because this is really all of reality. And business and organizational leadership and all those things just have to fit. They have to fit the foundation of who Jesus is and what he's done in the life he's called us to. Otherwise, you're trying to build something that doesn't fit on its own foundation, you know, if that makes sense.
Well, and absolutely makes sense. Yeah. Man, you're taking us to church today. I love it. I love it. This aligns so perfectly with something Billy Graham said. I don't know if you saw the quote that I shared.
Oh,
with
yeah,
you.
I did.
He said, I believe one of the next great moves of God is going to be through the believers in the workplace. And I think that if every single business organizational leader took the mindset that you're encouraging, now obviously we're not perfect at it.
Yeah.
Obviously we screw up. We are sinners and we are selfish.
We're really good at screwing stuff up.
And I'm just talking about myself right now. I can't speak for anybody else, but in my
everybody
own
else would
experience.
Speak for us. Go ahead.
Yes.
But I think that everything that you're saying is the game changer. It's the catalyst for this becoming a reality. This quote, this vision that Billy Graham had. And I think that, I mean, I personally have been convicted and challenged like so much in the past 30 minutes. And so I'm incredibly grateful for you speaking that truth. I think that if there is a way that we can provide for leaders, everybody tuning in today, some sort of, not formula because that sounds terrible, but like reminder, accountability, framework, however you want to phrase it, to encourage this mindset of margin in your life, of intentionality with your team, with the people that God has put in your path, whether it's the janitor or the person sitting in the corner office next to you. You've got to be intentional. That's going to be what allows the gospel to be projected throughout the workplace and the world. Yeah. And I mean, people spend more time at work than they spend anywhere else. Literally.
Yeah. That they're not asleep.
But even then, people normally work more than they sleep.
Yeah, it's true. Sadly.
Yeah. So with all that in mind, like, it is such an incredible opportunity for us as leaders to point people to Jesus and be that reflection of Jesus. And I'm so inspired by everything that you shared on that front.
Well, and I mean, I understand why he said that, because the world we live in America is so corporate and people are so busy. Yeah. They spend so much time at work, as you said. And it really just feels like, man, if we could stop the kind of separation of our faith and our work life, if we could stop just being like, here's work me, and then there's church me, if we could just blow that up, because that's not helping, you know? It doesn't help me, and it doesn't help anyone in my workplace or whatever. It's like, I really think the critical issue is that if we can break down these kind of compartmentalized aspects of our life and we can just be Christ followers all the time, then you go to work and you see a person, and when you're talking with that person, you're just like actually interested in who they are. And when they say something about their life, you're like, can I pray for you about that? Yeah. And love them and encourage them and see how you could get involved in being like grace to them, you know? I think moments like that are super powerful and it changes the game. But that's just about being who you are in Christ all the time and not like clocking in and out of your Christianity because you clocked into your job, you know?
Yeah.
It's very real.
Yeah.
I think two things for me pop into my mind. One is again risk. I think a lot of times people have a hard time risking that because they're fearful of if I do live out my faith, you know, in my workplace, the cost
Yeah.
could be high. I mean, it could be really high. If you somehow something offensive happens and you saying that you want to care for somebody and they get offended and you lose a large portion of revenues, that's risky. But the outcomes, this is where you have to have vision for this. You have to understand that today there might be some pain. A year from now, 2 years from now, when all of a sudden your company doesn't have the type of rollover on staff that every other company is suffering because all the people in your organization feel highly valued and cared for because you did take the time to talk to them for a little while, that's a payoff. You can't calculate the amount of savings that you just, and you're not even thinking that way, but it's there. And then also retention of clients. When they know that they're cared for, like they're not going to go somewhere because they know that they can trust that you care about them and you're going to help them get to where they're going. And again, you can't calculate that.
Yeah.
And the value is immense. So it's like, take time to care. And like you said, pray for them. And this whole separation of work and church life, it's not how I think we were designed, and I don't think it's doing us any good. I echo what you're trying to say, and what you are saying very clearly, which I really appreciate what Clay said earlier. The impact of the words that are coming out is like, yes, I completely affirm that. But I want to encourage everybody that's listening to this, like, it's going to take a little bit of boldness to do that.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little bit of faith, not like a leap. Just one step, just one day, just try it once, like listening to this might be really encouraging. It's gonna be hard to go out when you turn off this video, you turn around and you see all the to-dos coming in and someone's bothering you about something. You're gonna have a hard time being like, okay.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Like that's gonna be really hard,
Just
or
write pencil their name in at the top of the list real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the outcome out of all of this is to create an environment in your organization that reflects God's love and the principles that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It's all about creating that environment where that is able to thrive. I mean, if that is not inspired and demonstrated from the top down, then that environment will not happen.
Right.
So if you just try, maybe you say no to one meeting a week and save that time for the margin time. I mean, that is going to have a massive ripple effect.
Yeah.
Because we know as leaders, if you do anything else like that, it'll have a massive ripple effect.
Yeah.
I mean, there's about 1,000 business books that say, Atomic Habits, if you've ever read it, it's you spend 5 minutes and then you spend it to 10 minutes and then 15 minutes. And then eventually you're going to have an entire day set aside for that, creating the habits you care about. So I think it really is just leading toward that goal of developing an environment and a safe space where all of the other leaders in your organization can follow suit.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And here's a way to think of it. Do you want to be the business or the organization? Do you want to be the leader who some really sincere person who really loves Jesus, loves people, works in your organization, they have to fly under the radar because you haven't built an organization that gives margin for that,
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't want to be that boss,
Yeah.
You want to be the leader who's built the structure that causes that to thrive, And we all have to get our work done, There's stuff that has to happen, but in the midst of that, can we care for each other? Can we love each other, be intentional about meeting each other where we're at and taking that time? Like, we can build an organization that has the margin so that people don't have to try to they're not scratching and clawing for the margin and looking over their shoulder hoping, that James doesn't pop in because he's going to get mad at me for standing by somebody's desk.
Yeah.
It's like, no, James can walk in and be like, hey, what's up, guys? Oh, we were just talking about something going on in their life. Sweet, good, By the way, did we get the thing done yet? And it's like, let's make sure we get to that, but this is great.
Yeah, you finish this, bro.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that can be real business.
Yeah.
That's actually, it's humanly possible. I know in America it feels like, that's soft. You're not making money, But like, no, we can be good at all of this.
Yeah.
We can.
Brilliant. So Patrick, you are currently in the midst of a church plant. How far along are you in that? 2 years, 3 years?
3.
3 years. So you're 3 years into a church plant in a place that is not necessarily the easiest place to plant a church. Could you share with us a little bit about what you've learned about leadership through that? And then also, as we wrap up, because I know we're over time, but that's not a rush on you because we own this space right now. So, but is there anything that you would ask people to do to take guidance from? So.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we planted Open Doors a few years ago, and we knew immediately what the Lord was telling us to do, which was go after the least in the community, the people who they weren't going to show up at church anywhere because they knew they weren't welcome, and that most churches in the area are not built for caring for these people. The real significant problems. They're complicated.
Yeah.
And it's hard, it's taxing, it's costly. We knew the Lord was calling us to that, and we decided to just say yes and take the risk. And it does sometimes feel more costly than other times. We've had some real high points and some real disappointing points, and all those, everything in between. But this community is called Hazy Hollow. It's in Magnolia, Texas. It's on the wrong side of the tracks, literally. I don't know if you've been there yet. Clay's driven through it and met with us once, but yeah, we are just really trying to meet people where they're at. And so this community is infamous around that area for a lot of drug trafficking, and the homes there are just so broken. The families are so broken up. I would tell you, I'm not exaggerating, and I'm also not trying to brag, I promise. I'm just trying to give you a picture of what it's like, because sometimes it's like the harder it is, the more holy you feel or something. I'm really not. It's just the reality is that probably close to half of the people we've baptized are in jail.
Wow.
And they're not, they're in jail because of things they did in the past, and they're kind of owning up, and the Lord is, so, yeah, it's a tough ministry, and it's a costly one, but it's worth it because of, where we started this conversation. Like, these people were created by God.
They have breath in their lungs.
Yeah, they matter. And so we've devoted ourselves for the last few years of just loving this community. And so here's what it looks like. We pray our guts out. And when somebody comes to us, we just try to invest ourselves in them and disciple them to learn how to follow Jesus. And it's tough because they've lived a whole life of being abused, and as a result, abusing others and making terrible decisions, and their lives are totally upside down, a lot of dumpster fires. And so they're really having to completely start over and rebuild their lives. And it's right under your nose. It's like right down the street from a famously wealthy neighborhood where celebrities live,
Yeah.
And you could drive right past it and never know, but it's been there for a long time, and there's a lot of people really hurting and really hopeless. So that's where we are. Our church meets in the neighborhood, and it's, it's gritty. It is not, it's not polished looking. We have no laser lights.
You got a big TV though.
We have a TV.
You've got a big
TV. There's a TV on the wall that shows the lyrics. And so, we worship and we pray and we get into the Word together, and we give space for God's Spirit to speak, and we pray for healing all the time because there's a lot of people who really need it, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So that's what we've been busy with for the last few years, and the cost is totally worth it. That's the number one thing I would say. And that brings back to, some of the things that you've said, James, about the cost. One thing we know, Peter, who followed Jesus, one of his best friends, learned from him, failed super hard, fell on his face. Jesus restored him, and he gave his whole life to Jesus and to the gospel, and then was killed for it. And before he died, he said, we're going to face all kinds of trials. This is in 1 Peter. We're going to face all kinds of trials, and our faith is going to be tested. But our faith is going to be tested to the point that it's so refined that it's more precious than gold that's been refined by fire. And the result of that, here's where the cost turns out to be worth it. The result of that is going to be praise and honor and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ. When Jesus comes back, every cost we paid for the sake of his name, for the sake of others, that we didn't put ourselves and what was convenient or comfortable or money-making for us, we didn't put it before human beings who need the love of Jesus, it will all be found to be worth it, proven, no doubt. Jesus splits the sky open, everybody knows every cost that was paid was worth it. I just want to keep living for that moment, you know? That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing for me, just that moment. I just want to live for that moment.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of joy in living for that moment.
Absolutely.
Because it's all worth it.
I love it. Well, Patrick, how can people engage with you? How can people support what you're doing in Hazy Hollow?
Yeah, thanks. We need the help, but opendoorstx.com is the website. It's not fancy. There's not a bell or a whistle on it, okay? But yeah, they can find us there and they can connect with us there.
Yeah.
And if you're in the area, if you're around Northwest Houston, Tomball, Magnolia, whatever, you can find us. And love to meet people, need partners.
Well, and for everyone tuning in, I'll say this. I've been a few times to Open Doors, and it is an experience that you will never forget for so many reasons.
For so many reasons.
But you will see God and experience God in that place because of the people that are there.
Yeah.
And because of what he's doing through the ministry that not just you, Patrick, but Matt and everybody else.
Yeah. For sure.
So anyway, Patrick, thank you so much for being on Good Business today. It's been humbling, exciting, encouraging, and everyone tuning in, I hope it was the same for you. So please hit that, smash that like button. Smash it. Click the subscribe now. We'd love to continue to share these kind of episodes with amazing speakers and influencers in the world for the good of God's kingdom. We want to keep bringing episodes like this. So please subscribe and share with anyone who you believe is going to be impacted by what Patrick had to share today. And we'll see you guys next week on Good Business. And it's going to be a real treat. We've got another great speaker coming in, and I'm excited to share him with you. So y'all have a blessed one, and we'll stay in touch.